Another college football weekend is here, and we are right here with you at the 10, your favorite Big Ten football betting show. I'm your host, Greg Waddell, joined by Doug Kazarian. We've got a look at the entire Big Ten slate for week 9 in store for you today. We will cover each and every game, finalize our cards, and give you our best bets at the end of the show. But first, reminder, we've got two amazing promotions ongoing for you here at Bet Rivers, beginning with our football squares. Players who place a qualifying same game parlay of at least $10 on eligible NFL or NCAA football games will receive one standard entry into our weekly squares game. Winning standard squares will be awarded a prize of a $20 bonus bet. You can see the app and the website for more details. On top of the squares, we also have a weekly profit boost pack for college football for you. You can log into your BetRivers app or betrivers.com accounts and opt into a 3-pack of NCAA football profit boosts, a live boost, a same game parlay boost, and a boost to use however you please. You won't want to miss it. Make sure you take advantage. All right, let's get right into our week 9 slate, beginning with UCLA at Indiana. Kurt Cignetti's Hoosiers favored by 25.5 points. Our total 53.5. This seemed like our most exciting game in our first episode this week. I certainly still feel that way on kind of a dull slate. This game's got my full attention. Doug, what do you like here?
It really does, doesn't it? Because UCLA is playing such good ball of late, and this is more than a measuring stick. I think this number is just so tight. I think the betting odds, both side and total, are right on the number. Last week we know about Michigan State kicking the field goal on 4th and 12 to cover, but possession before that, 4th and short, Zignetti kicks the field goal as well. Don't tell me that both coaches did know the spread, right? Like he knows he could have iced the game with a first down, but he kicked it to cover the spread. So I think I think last year he was more in FU mode to sort of style points and win over the committee. He may need it if he loses by 1 or 2 scores in the Big Ten title game, assuming everything else plays out accordingly. So he may use it for a bye. I don't know. I think there's enough film for the Bruins that the Hoosiers will be ready, but I still think UCLA can get points. So I like the over. And there's a fun prop on Bet Rivers, a special UCLA to score in both halves, minus 159. It's tempting. I would bet it if it were like minus 120. I think they get a garbage field goal in the first half, and then second half they could get a touchdown. I think this Bruins offense has really opened up things with Nico and the run game and everything. But if I in a pick'em league, I would take the Bruins and the points, but I like the over the most. But that UCLA prop does seem funky to me and kind of fun. Their team totals 13 and a half, so that interests me as well.
I like the prop shout from you. It is fun to try and talk yourself into a couple UCLA drives here. I think, you shouldn't approach betting, right? This is not advice. Don't go out trying to bet whatever the most fun bet is. But just speaking from an entertainment value perspective, I think the way that I want to play this game is certainly buying into the UCLA offense, making things interesting here. And I mentioned it earlier this week. Indiana, even in their best performances, has given up a big breakaway score play to some of the middling offenses in this league. UCLA's offense is for real. Since this coaching change, I just really buy the eye test. I think the numbers back it up. The per play numbers. They found the end zone repeatedly. I mean, hanging 42 on Penn State in a game where Penn State still had a lot to play for, I think is a notable data point to me. So to me, it would be either Bruins or pass or the over or pass. I like the prop of UCLA scoring each half. I'm with you. It's not the juice there isn't exactly worth the squeeze, but I do think it's likely the Bruins do score in both halves. For me, I'm staying away. I couldn't get fully there out of respect for Kurt Cignetti. Let's move to game 2 on our card. It is Northwestern at Nebraska. The Cornhuskers have yet to cover the spread in a Big Ten game, favored by 7.5 here in a bounce back spot. The total is 44.5. What are your thoughts?
Give me the Purple Cats. This is a new team. They've won 4 straight. They're 1 win away from bowl eligibility. They're playing really good ball in my eyes. Preston Stone, the former SMU quarterback, leads a competent Northwestern offense. That's not something I could have said in the last couple of years, but I feel like this offense can click. Now, they faced Purdue and they faced Louisiana Monroe and they faced UCLA when they were pitiful, but this team did go into Happy Valley and win and really controlled the game and fought with them those nitty lines all game. And that was when I thought Penn State would cover. You know, they had the buffer of the UCLA game after the previous loss. So I think this Nebraska team has been terrible in a lot of ways. Now, last week was Matt Rule dealing with the Penn State hoopla, and I did not expect they laid an egg, as did Manny Diaz and the Blue Devils. So both guys that are rumored for the job. I just still think it's too many points. I'm not saying they're going to win at Memorial Stadium, but I think these are two ships passing in opposite directions. I think Nebraska deserves, a lot of heat for how they've played lately. I think it's too many points.
It's a favorable number if you are buying into Northwestern being tougher than they may appear at first glance. I am. This will be on my card. I'm taking the half a point above a touchdown number. I just don't trust Nebraska to beat anybody in this conference comfortably until I see them do it. I just don't think that's who this football team is. I think they kind of are comfortable flirting with disaster and will just make the plays late with Dylan Raiola. It's not exactly a buttoned up approach. You see that against the spread number 2-5. That's 0-5 against Power 5 opponents. Remember, they also failed to cover the spread against Cincinnati back in the first game of the season. I thought Northwestern, it's not a win that's going to earn you, I don't know, a lot of national love, but they dominated Purdue at the line of scrimmage. I thought they controlled that game better than even a USC controlled the game against Purdue earlier this season. The Purdue offense could really not move the football against Northwestern. So I'm buying into the Cats being a lot tougher than they look at first glance. I'll take the points here as well. Doug and I aligned. Let's get Troy Macker in here. What does the public think of Northwestern Nebraska?
In terms of who's going to win the game, it's actually kind of strong on Nebraska. 94% of the money and 92% of the tickets, which is a little surprising given that Northwestern has, like you said, won 4 in a row, and Nebraska hasn't looked very good. The spread plays is also very surprising. 59% of the money and 54% of the tickets are on Nebraska. And I chalk that up to the public not being all that educated on Northwestern. Maybe the last time they saw them play, other than the Penn State game, but we attribute that to Penn State and not Northwestern, was week 1 against Tulane. Now, granted, that's a 6-1 Tulane team that's only losses at Ole Miss, a very good Ole Miss team. And Northwestern played terrible in week 1. This Northwestern team is markedly improved. So the fact that only 60% of the money and 55% of the tickets are still on Nebraska, I was expecting this at over a touchdown to be on Northwestern. What we've seen out of Northwestern is they play very hard. They're getting more talented. They're becoming more competent on offense, but they play really, really hard. And that's one thing I don't know if we can say it about Nebraska. The over under 44, each of Nebraska's last 6 home games have gone over the total points line, and the public is on that 89% of the money and 88% of the tickets on the over 44.
I would point out too, if you're looking for data points on what does Matt Rule and Nebraska do when they kind of have that come to Jesus loss in the middle of the season, right? That happened last year. They were 5-1 to start the season, very similar to this year. They got blitzed by Indiana. They went on to go 1-5 in their final 6 games. The wheels just fell off. So I'm not saying it's going to be the same this year. I do think this team has taken marginal steps forward, but favorable number to the Cats. I'm glad that Doug and I are aligned on this one. Let's move to game 3 here. Rutgers on the road at Purdue. The Boilermakers, I mentioned their performance against Northwestern, shut out. Did not score. One of the worst offensive showings that any team in this conference has had this year. Still, Rutgers on the road -2 against a Purdue team we have liked the eye test with many weeks of this season leading up until that disastrous performance last week. High total here for a team that didn't score last week, 58.5. What do you think, Doug?
Isn't that interesting? Purdue getting blanked and then has a total of 58.5. But if there is a prescription for any bad offense, it is the Rutgers defense. And can Barry Odom get over the hump and get a conference win here? He's obviously made the Boilermakers way more competent this season. So he's achieved, I think, what he wanted in year 1, at least one of the goals. They've looked like an actual football program and even like a Power 5 program. So I'll give them credit, and that obviously speaks to the head coach from the top down. I think they get the win here. I think this Rutgers defense is that bad. They've lost 4 straight. They just got boat raced by Oregon at home, which is nothing to sneeze at. But, they lost at Minnesota and at Washington. They were competitive somewhat by their standards in those games. So I don't love it. I'm not playing it, but it's Purdue or pass. It's really the eye test for me, Greg. This Rutgers defense will give it up, and I think Purdue's aching for a win. I think Purdue's going to want this game a lot more than Rutgers.
I would have loved this number before last week for Purdue. In fact, I loved Purdue last week against Northwestern, and ultimately that was probably my worst read of the week. I'm afraid to put my faith in this Barry Odom team. There's just a lot of guys in this locker room that I think are experienced at losing, and that's not some expert analysis for you to tell you this was a bad football team, but like Devin Mockabee's been around for what, 5 years, and really all he knows right now is losing games in this conference. I do think that matters. It's hard to turn around a culture, no matter how feisty they were in the non-conference this season. At some point, you wonder, maybe mentally and emotionally, do these guys that have just settled into poor seasons, how do they recover from a 0-point performance against Northwestern? I want to believe in the Boilers still. I don't think I'd touch the spread either way. However, I am taking the under. I think that offense may have some lingering after effects from a pitiful performance last week. Under 58.5 for me. Let's get Troy back in here. Troy, what can you add for us?
Yeah, let's talk about that total 58.5 on the high side. Each of Rutgers' last 6 games as a favorite have gone over the total points line. Now, granted, they are a road favorite in this one. Let's quickly talk about Purdue's losing streak. They've lost 13 in a row in the conference opponents. But that under 58.5, 77% of the tickets are on the under. That equates to being the strongest underplay of the entire weekend. Granted, we don't get unders, heavy unders all that often, and usually it's on the money, not the tickets, because you take a couple of big bets. So the fact that we have a sheer volume of tickets coming on the under at 58, that's something I would tend to agree with, especially coming off the backs of a blank last week. This is going to be a game that you track, you maybe check in. There is no visual appeal to this game other than following that under.
Poor Purdue football. I mean, the amount of times that we could say that exact sentence from Troy the last 2 seasons is just true. For Purdue
Basketball
fans,
season is coming, though.
You're right. The season's here. Maybe we'll have more for you on the 10 in the future for Boiler fans that want to smile about something. For now, let's move to a sexier game here. Illinois at Washington. The Illini still in the mix for an outside chance at a college football playoff run here. Only 2 losses to the 2 elite teams in this conference. They're going to need to win this one. 4-point underdogs on the road in a West Coast trip to the Huskies. Our total is 54.5 here. If you did want to look at the money line underdog here, Illinois is plus 138. Washington to win outright, minus 190. What say you, Doug?
I think it's the same as what you discussed the other day. This Illinois team, like you mentioned, man, those 2 losses are nothing to sneeze about. So it's just maybe the margin of defeat and how lifeless they were. Got to the goal line, but didn't score a first half touchdown against uh, Ohio State, and then ultimately lost and did not cover. This Washington team is annoying. I feel like their ceiling is always much higher than they actually perform, and it's frustrating. And I think Jed Fish gets a pass, and I like him, but for some reason I'm part of the problem too because I give him a pass as well. Uh, it's Illinois or pass, but I would need more points. I made the line 3. Um, the total feels low. I think this opens up, and it's crazy that this total's lower than the Purdue Rutgers one, but that's just how bad that Rutgers defense is. Um, I think over's the only play I would have here, but it's in a pick'em league. I would take the dog.
Okay, I'm with you here. I think we could see a lot of points. I think there's no reason to believe either defense is going to provide much resistance. It's really which offense do you trust more? Do you trust Washington at home where they're comfortable, or do you trust Luke Altmaier and the veteran Illinois offense to go on the road and really put up a performance in a game that this team needs, right? Their season hinges on this game. Now, that can go one of 2 ways. You can feel the game pressure, and that can crush teams, or they can respond and deliver an A game. If Illinois plays their A game, I think they win this football game. I think Illinois is a better football team than Washington. I like Brett Bielema with his back against the wall against a team that he has the better side of. Obviously, that doesn't really matter motivationally when they go up against an Indiana who's just better on both sides, or an Ohio State. We have the data points on that. I think this Washington team is a little sexier to the eye test than they actually are. I mean, they did not put up much of a fight against Michigan last week in the trenches. I think Illinois is going to be at their best here, off of a bye week as well. I think that's massive. The extra week to prepare, where Washington's coming back from the trip to Ann Arbor. So I'll take the 4 points for the Illini and add that to my card. I've got a lot of plays this week, even though it isn't the greatest week, I'm finding out. Let's move. It's Minnesota at Iowa next. The Golden Gophers, 9.5-point underdogs on the road in Kinnick. This line has moved a point in Iowa's favor. It was 8.5 earlier this week. Our total has also moved. It is up to 40 from 38.5 when we had our first discussion about this game earlier this week. Doug, does the movement of either of these lines move you in any direction here?
It makes me more confident in Iowa. I just think that Minnesota's going to get outclassed. I think at first glance it made sense the other day. We talk about the points, but it just like Minnesota they caught Nebraska the perfect time, right? With the Franklin firing, and Rule's head was elsewhere, and they just didn't show up. I don't think that was really a reflection of how much Minnesota is so good and things like that. Whatever the Gophers want to do plays into what the Hawkeyes are good at. Now, this Iowa passing game leaves a lot to be desired. I feel like it's going to be low scoring, but they should maul them in the trenches. I really think they can run all over them, as you see from the graphic, averaging nearly 200 yards per game. But that Minnesota defense is good. I think this could be a rock fight, and I don't think Minnesota's going to score much. I think this is a late cover, like a 17-3 game, and then it's like maybe they get it backdoor. But I really think it's going to be one of those 20-10 games, and you're in the game the entire time if you have Minnesota in the points, and then you end up not covering.
I leaned Minnesota earlier this week, and I didn't feel good about it whatsoever because I was up against Doug Kazarian. That's never a good place to be. But the more the line moves, the more afraid I am of betting this game, to be honest with you. It's moving away from the side I'm on at a number I already thought was favorable to Minnesota. Something's fishy. I could end up seeing this be like a 24-3 Iowa victory that's just a ho-hum, we dominate the trenches game. If anything, I might lean the under, but even that on the move is suspicious to me. Ultimately, I want no part of this game. Let's get Troy back in here. Troy, what data can you add on Minnesota, Iowa for us?
Yeah, after the win against Nebraska, at least from like the Joe's standpoint, you got to think Minnesota's the play to cover at plus 8.5. Where does Iowa get their points from? They're inept on offense. Certainly, Kinnick's a tough place to play, but at first glance, like you, I was thinking this is an easy pick on Minnesota to cover. Then here's a good trend. Iowa has covered the spread in 6 of its last 7 games against Minnesota. PJ Fleck can't figure out the Hawkeyes. And the public is still backing Minnesota, 62% of the money, 60% of the tickets. Now, we see that line movement because we were taking just a bunch of money on Iowa to win. It's 96% of the money and 91% of the tickets, but there's just a ton of money coming in. I think with that movement from 8.5 to 9.5, I'm in the same regard as you guys. Even more confident in Iowa. I still wonder where are they going to get points from. It's always interesting whenever an Iowa over/under total moves up. But I think that Minnesota is not the same team at home that they are on the road. They're 0-2 on the road, haven't put up any points whatsoever. But I think just, I am having more conviction because of that line movement. But if you're just looking at, you saw them play last week and you look at the line, I can understand why you'd easily jump on Minnesota at over a touchdown against an offensively inept Iowa team. But Kinnick is such a hard place to play. And there's just something that tells me this is going to trend like it has in the past, and PJ Fleck won't be able to figure out the Hawkeyes, and they should win.
Yeah, strong public play on Minnesota as the line moves toward Iowa. This is just endorsing my belief that I need to stay away from this game. Best of luck to Doug on the Iowa Hawkeye side of this. Let's move to Wisconsin. Speaking of offenses that just cannot find ways to score, the Wisconsin Badgers have scored 20 points in their last 240 minutes of football. That's Crazy. Back-to-back shutouts for this Badger offense. They did not score against Ohio State. They did not score against Iowa. Now they are on the road in Autzen against an Oregon team that will have a propensity to boat race teams when the opportunity allows for it. Oregon by 32 is the spread. Our totals at 45. Doug, what do you think?
Thought about this one a lot. I love these types of games, and we have another one in the Big 12 with Texas Tech laying a similar number against Okie State. I think you have to lay it with the Ducks. Now, I think Wisconsin could score here. They haven't scored in a couple games, so I do think you have to touch on that. And last year, they really complicated the Ducks defense. It was a low scoring, like field goal game, if I remember correctly. But ultimately, this Badgers team wants no part of Autzen. It's a horrible trip. They're going to be miserable. I gotta lay it in this game. I really do.
It's been so bad for Wisconsin.
So
I
bad,
mean,
right?
there's just not much outside of the decision to move away from Fickle. Maybe that galvanizes a group like we've seen other teams in this conference this year. But their athletic directors on record endorsing that Fickle's still the guy. We want to see this turn around. I don't expect any signs of life from Wisconsin whatsoever. So to me, I don't love playing huge numbers like this, but I 100% agree. I lean Oregon. I think that's the right side here. The question is just what does Dan Lanning want to win by in this game? Troy, help us make some sense of this one, please. What is going on with Wisconsin and Oregon's early action?
Yeah, well, this one's actually moved. It was 34 and a half. It's now down to 32. So that is a little surprising and probably trying to get people back on the Oregon side. 60% of the money's on Wisconsin to cover, but 84% of the tickets are on the Ducks. I'd be more inclined to jump on Oregon minus 32 than 34 and a half. And there's two trends. They kind of cancel each other out. I think that goes back to just Wisconsin not being good, but Wisconsin's covered the spread in 7 of its last 8 road games in October. But Oregon has covered the spread in 4 of its last 5 games as a double-digit favorite. I think it's not just Wisconsin's bad. They've had down years. They've kind of been trending in the wrong direction. This certainly isn't the run-heavy teams that had running back U of a decade ago. But this is nothing like any Wisconsin team I've ever seen. And I've grown up without really a college football team, so I've randomly gravitated towards Wisconsin for some reason. This is the worst they've ever been in my lifetime. And they're going up against a track team, a team that historically loves to score points. So as a public bettor, if you can, get a point and a half or 2 points back, I can see why that's happening. And I would be very interested to see where the money is, right before kickoff, because I think that's going to be far more in Oregon's favor than it is right now with 60% of the money on Wisconsin to cover.
Doug, let me go back to you and ask you here. Any lean on the total here? I'm just looking through Oregon's scores this year. They've gone over 45 every single game. Now, obviously, Wisconsin's offense is another level of inept right now. But, if you do like Oregon to cover the number, I would almost think it corresponds to the over here. Do you have any thoughts?
I don't see a shutout here. I know that's crazy to say considering they've been blanked in back-to-back games, but I don't know if Oregon's the team that's going to care maybe like defensively. That's not really their calling card. They're going to light it up. So I'm with you in that regard. But the one pause I have on that is just last year's 16-13 game. That is hard to ignore. And I think that's why there's some line move. Oregon has certainly laid it on opponents, whether it be the Civil War or when war of words between Lanning and Mike Gundy with Okie State. Other than that, do they really have incentive to just go beat down mode? I don't know. So I do think Whiskey might be able to get some garbage points, but it's going into the bye for the Ducks. I just think they're going to want to. I think last week they exercised some demons off the loss to Indiana, right? And then they go spank Rutgers in 56-10, but that's Rutgers' defense. I don't think the Badgers are going to be doing it. Maybe the over is the right play. I think maybe it is 40-7 or something like that. I could see the Badgers scoring, which is hilarious that we're even discussing that. But when you have back-to-back shutouts, you have back-to-back shutouts. I think you're onto something there, Greg. I think that's the only way to play because Oregon could get some easy points and then some.
Yeah, the more we talk through it, it's reminding me of the Oregon State-Oregon matchup from earlier this year, and that ended up 41-7. So great shout from you on a 40-7 ball game. That's basically the pitch I'm envisioning in my head. Now, that's only 2 points above this number at 45. So you decide if you think that type of game script is worth backing the over or not. But yes, the first time all year Oregon's had a total number below 50. I mean, the lowest before this was 51. They have hit the over in 4 of their 7 games this year, despite the numbers usually being in the
What
50s.
about last year's 16-13 score?
I know that's the data point. That's got to be the one thing that is keeping this number there. I just honestly think this Wisconsin team is so different than last year's. It really is, and the level of belief is different too right now. But we'll see. I don't know. It's probably just a
I
lean
like
for me.
uh, How
I don't even
about
put it on
Wisconsin
the card.
scoring both halves plus 270?
Ooh, I mean that's
I think that's a good bet. I think that's a good bet.
I think I like that more than anything else, but you gotta be a
Yeah.
sicko to back
Yeah,
Wisconsin
you
in
can get
any
a you
way
can get a garbage
offensively.
field goal.
Yeah, alright, well, is it on the card, Doug? Are we adding it?
Yeah, let's add it. I like that. Plus 270, courtesy of Bet Rivers. I'm not laying the $4, I'll tell you that, but I think that's a good value there.
Plus money value from Doug Kazarian. You're welcome, folks. There we have it. All right, the final game on the card for week 9. It's the rivalry game in my state, Michigan at Michigan State, a night game in Spartan Stadium. We talked about how weird this line was to us at first glance earlier this week. Michigan by 2 touchdowns. The total at 47.5. I have no idea what version of Michigan State will show up for this game. Is it the dead dog that showed up and got ran out of Spartan Stadium against UCLA 2 weeks ago? Is it the team that scored on their first 2 drives against Kurt Cignetti's Hoosiers in Bloomington last week? You help me make sense of this, Doug. What do you expect?
I think it's one of those things where you just got to take the points. It's a rivalry game. It's ugly. I'm not betting it by any means, but I do think it's too many points in a rivalry game for this offense of the Wolverines. It's been nothing spectacular, all things considered. Underwood's shown signs for sure, but this is a pretty forgetful maize and blue outfit this year. And they've lost to the good teams. They've handled their business, but 14 does seem like it's a little rich, all things considered. I thought I thought the Spartans did some things here and there that maybe think they can kind of hang around. I don't know if we're going to get an outright upset like we've seen some crazy results in this rivalry when one team's supposed to win, but I think it's too many points. I couldn't lay it on the road in this rivalry.
Yeah, you'd have to really love Michigan and really believe that this team has turned a corner and found something in their home win over Washington last week. That would be the pitch to me. I would have thought this number comes out around 10 and a half, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. And it's almost the suspicious line to me. It's kind of in that bucket of, okay, this is 3 points off what I'd make it. But do I like Michigan State enough to play the value that I see? I don't think I do. I really don't. I think this team is at risk of a mutiny on Jonathan Smith at some point. I'm just as easily convinced that this could be the boat race, get him out of town game where your home fans are booing him out of the program. I could also see the galvanizing save his job game. I thought that was coming against UCLA 2 weeks ago, and I haven't shaken the stink off. So it's a total stay away from me. Unfortunately, as a resident in this state, this game will be on my television, but I'm not expecting it to be all that entertaining. There you have it. We've gone through the entire slate for week 9. Let's end the show as we always do with our best bets. Doug, what is your favorite play for the week?
You know, I was going around left and right, things like that. I gotta take the Purple Cats plus 7.5. They're just playing much better ball than Nebraska. It's not like this Huskers team rolls opponents, right? They have a knack for the close finishes and things like that. It's not a card I love, but it's hard not. It was this or Iowa were my two. But I'm gonna go with the underdog here. I think they're just playing so well. And who knows where Matt Rule's head's at? We knew where it was last week. Not a good showing. But I think this Northwestern team's rolling along. I'm worried that it's a square dog and a dog with fleas, and maybe they just get rolled. But I think they're playing too hard and too well. I think they're going to stay attached here and maybe even have a chance to win. Who knows?
I like it. I endorse that one as well. It's one of the few plays this week that you and I both have on our cards. I am going to take the Illini here as my best bet. I think we've seen Illinois against this type of range of opponent, like a bowl team that isn't a college football playoff level caliber team. They've had their best performances. I thought they rolled Duke in a game that was of similar ilk to me. I thought the Illinois win over USC at home was very similar. To me, this is a back against the wall spot, a well coached team, a veteran team, I think a better football team than Washington with an extra week to prep. I'll take the points. I will note we're both locking in road underdogs here as our best play of the week. That always makes me just a little uneasy, but hey, it's an uneasy week. I think we could make that clear as we talk through all of these games on the fly. There you have it, folks. Thank you, as always, for watching the 10. Reminder, make sure you get those weekly college football promotions, both our college football squares and our trio of profit boosts that we have available for you. We are part of College Sports Rush. That's where you can also get Sports Better's Paradise with Jimmy Ott every single week, along with 2 episodes of this very show, The 10, your favorite Big Ten football betting show every single week. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Doug. Thank you to our entire team behind the scenes. Good luck with your bets this weekend. We'll see you next week.